My opponent opens her speech with the statement, "This entire argument does not need to take place. If we are not here to argue, then what is a debate?" This opening sentence indicates to me that, as it should indicate to the judges, that by her own admission, my opponent is conceding to my points and does not want to further her case. Bear in mind, the remaining 5 minutes of her speech are based on the exact opposite sentiment. To clarify, my argument is based in factual and scientific evidence. In no point of my opening speech did I indicate or allude to the Petrick incident being a foundation for any argument. I use the Petrick shooting as an example of a singular and all too common incident of video games glorifying gun violence's effect outside the video game world. My opponent uses the phrase, and I quote, "This is one case and you want the national government to make a ruling on that," close quotes. I will assume she is referring to the United States federal government, but her definition of ruling is unclear. Again, I simply open my speech with this recollection to impart a feeling of personalization in an argument that my opponent seems to want to dehumanize. Human life has an intrinsic value, and any event that results in the loss of human life should be treated with respect. In response to the challenge of the ESRB's responsibilities, any content that appears in video games sold in the United States must be approved by the ESRB, and therefore I do not see how it is unreasonable to hold them accountable for their actions. If a game causes an addiction, as in the case of Daniel Petrick, shouldn't the organization responsible for allowing that game to be purchased be responsible? Isn't the FDA responsible for the side effects of drugs it allows to go to public market, including addiction and personality changes? Why is there an exception here? The following points I make are focused on my opponent's word choice. In many areas of her speech, her diction is incorrect and invalidates her arguments. To begin, she refers to, and I quote, "the Gaming Association," at least 4 times by my count. I question who or what is the Gaming Association. I'm not sure how an argument can be made about a group that does not exist. The phrase game architect is also used. Not only does this misnomer not exist, but my opponent grossly simplifies the creative process by assuming one person is expressing all creativity in a given video game. Finally, she refers to, and I quote, "a $380 million a year deficit from their profit loss," close quotes. Not only does she not define what economy reference or a source for the statistic, but the misrepresentation of the ideas of deficit and profit loss are apparent. A deficit means the amount by which something is too small. Our economy would be $300 million too small? I don't follow. Also, not all video games even net a profit, and far more money is put into an economy than just the profit through the payment of all the people working on the video game. My opponent attempts to devalue my research in her citation of a July 2008 study she deems more relevant. Firstly, a study published later does not necessarily mean more recent data is used. Secondly, her study focuses on all media, not just video games. And finally, she insinuates that because the games were created for entertainment purposes, they are only used for that purpose. The logical fallacy is obvious in that just because something is created for a purpose doesn't mean that's how it will be interpreted or used. My opponent insists the ESRB has no financial obligation to its fundees, yet she lists Amazon.com as a partner. Although not an inventor of video games, Amazon.com stands to directly profit from the sales the video games provide, as they provide the services through which many games are purchased. I'd like to apologize for my opponent missing the point of my speech and focusing on the first 30 seconds instead. I hope that this rebuttal on my initial arguments paints an accurate and concise picture as to why video games glorifying gun violence should be banned.